Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we've got an absolutely incredible narrative to unpack for you. We're taking a really deep dive into an ancient text from the Skanda Purana, specifically the Vat Savitri Katha, and we're going to map out a cinematic journey here. It starts off in the halls of royal elegance, but man, it rapidly accelerates into a high-stakes, mystical thriller. So grab your focus, because this is an epic tale of love, intellect, and literally the ultimate face-off with mortality itself. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly did a mortal princess outsmart the god of death? I mean, this isn't just your simple bedtime fable. This is a story that has survived for millennia because, well, it's absolutely brilliant. We're going to look at exactly how a human woman used sheer wit, absolute devotion, and a deeply logical mind to corner Yamraj, the ultimate force of finality, into a paradox he literally couldn't escape. Section 1. A princess chooses her fate. So to really understand this epic confrontation, let's set the stage back in ancient India. We're in the Madra kingdom with King Ashwapati and Queen Malvi. Now, they were just righteous rulers, but they were deeply sorrowful because they didn't have an heir. After years of devoted fasting and prayers to the goddess Savitri, they're finally blessed with a daughter. And they actually name her after the goddess herself. Princess Savitri grows up to be incredibly brilliant, radiant, and fiercely independent. This is crucial. This isn't a story where the princess just waits around to be given away. When no suitor seems worthy of her formidable intellect and grace, her father, the king, basically tells her to go out and find her own husband. Her search eventually leads her to a dense forest, and that's where she finds Prince Satyavan. He's a handsome, virtuous prince, but he's living in exile because his blind father, King Dumasen, had lost his kingdom. So Savitri makes her choice. But when she comes back to announce her decision, the great sage and seer Narad Muni happens to be visiting her parents. He looks into the future and drops a devastating truth. Satyavan is destined to live for only one more year. Just 1 year. Obviously, her parents are terrified. They beg her, please choose someone else. But Savitri replies, like a king's command, a woman chooses her husband only once. I just love that quote. It so brilliantly illustrates her absolute agency and her unwavering devotion. She made her choice with her mind and her heart, and she absolutely refuses to back down, even staring absolute doom right in the face. Section 2. The Foretold Forest Tragedy. That unwavering choice leads us directly into our second act, and you can feel the tone of our story shift dramatically here, from the bright halls of a palace right into the shadowed, mystical depths of the forest. Let's just trace this timeline. We go from Savitri finding Satyavan straight into Narad's chilling prophecy. Now, despite that terrifying warning, the royal wedding takes place with grand celebration. But beneath all that joy, there is a loud ticking clock. Only Savitri knows the exact date her husband is going to die. She moves to the forest, lives simply, serves her blind in-laws, and deeply loves Satyavan. And as that 1-year mark approaches, the tension just becomes unbearable. 3 days before the foretold death, Savitri stops eating entirely. She undertakes this rigorous, absolute fast to prepare her mind and spirit for what's coming. When the fatal day finally dawns, the day of Jyeshtha Purnima, a full moon, she insists on going with Satyavan deep into the woods to cut timber. Section 3. Confronting God of Death. The moment of truth has arrived. Deep in the woods, the prophecy fulfills itself. Satyavan is suddenly overcome with total exhaustion and this splitting headache, and he collapses. Savitri sits right down on the forest floor, resting his head in her lap under the sprawling ancient branches of a massive vat tree, a banyan tree. And as she watches, the atmosphere completely shifts. The ethereal, terrifying, and imposing figure of Yamraj, the god of death himself, arrives. He didn't even send his messengers. He came personally to collect a soul of Satyavan's caliber. No way, right? Now, the source text gives us a surprisingly vivid and specific detail right here. Yamraj extracts an angute jitni jivatma. That translates to a literal, thumb-sized soul pulled straight from Satyavan's body. So with her husband's life force bound, Yamraj turns and starts his journey back to the realm of the dead. But Savitri? She doesn't just sit there weeping in despair. No, she stands right up and fearlessly begins to follow the god of death. Of course, Yamraj notices her and commands her to stop. He tells her, look, your journey with Satyavan has ended. Mortals cannot follow me. Yamraj is relying on the ultimate, unyielding law of mortality. But Savitri counters him with a profound intellectual argument about dharma. She argues that her absolute highest duty, her dharma as a devoted wife, is to follow her husband wherever he goes. Her logic, her eloquence, and just her sheer lack of fear absolutely astound the god of death. He's so impressed by her devotion and sharp mind that he offers her a boon, basically saying, "I'll give you anything you want except the life of your husband." Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly how Savitri uses wit, rather than weapons or weeping, to completely corner the god of death into a trap. First up, she asks for eyesight for her blind father-in-law. Granted. Next, she asks for their lost kingdom to be restored. Granted. At this point, Yanraj is just eager to get rid of her. So finally, he offers her one last boon. Still maintaining total composure, she asks to be the mother of 100 sons. Yamraj, kind of not thinking it through, just says granted and tells her to go back. But wait a second. She didn't ask for Satyavan's life, did she? But she quickly reminds Yamraj. She is a devoted, righteous woman who can only have children with her husband. By granting her 100 sons, Yamraj has accidentally promised that Satyavan absolutely must live. It's brilliant. She trapped the god of death in a divine logical paradox. Section 4. The Black Graham Miracle. Realizing he's been completely outsmarted by a mortal woman's intellect and devotion, Yamraj actually laughs and concedes defeat. And the way the story visually describes the return of the soul is just fascinating. Yamraj doesn't just magically wave his hand in the air. He physically hands Savitri her husband's soul back in a seed-like form, which is described in the text as Kalachana, or black gram. Savitri rushes right back to the banyan tree where Satyavan's lifeless body is lying, and she places this literal seed of life, the black gram, straight into his mouth. Instantly, Satyavan breathes again. He wakes up as if he was just taking a deep sleep. But Savitri hasn't just saved her husband. Remember those other boons? Her father-in-law's sight is completely restored. Word quickly reaches them that their enemies have been defeated, and the kingdom is theirs once more. So they return triumphant. What was once this really hard life of exile in a forest hut is transformed right back into royal splendor. It's a complete victory, and it beautifully showcases how structured intellect and profound love conquered the ultimate finality. Section 5. Modern Vat Savitri Rituals. Let's move to and see how this builds into our modern world. Because this story isn't just some ancient myth locked away in a dusty book. It's a living, breathing legacy playing out in the real world today. On the exact same full moon of Jyeshtha Purnima, married women perform a specific puja honoring this epic tale. First, they bathe and adorn themselves in 16 shringar, those traditional bridal adornments, perfectly mirroring Savitri's status and devotion. Second, they approach the vat, the banyan tree, and offer water, kumkum, fruits, and crucially, the black gram, honoring the physical form of that returned soul. Third, they wrap raw cotton thread around the trunk, walking around the tree 7 times to physically bind their prayers for longevity. And fourth, they create these small garlands or decorations of 101 black beads on banyan leaves, representing the Mangal Sutra, the sacred thread of marriage. So these modern practices are a very direct homage to the ancient story we just explored. The banyan tree isn't just a plant here, it's the sanctuary where Satyavan's life was spared. The black gram is literally the seed of resurrection. By sharing haldi kumkum, turmeric, and vermilion with other women, they're actively sharing the auspicious energy of Savitri's triumph. And most importantly, they sit together under the tree and practice Shravan Bhakti, the devotion of listening. They listen to the Vat Savitri Katha, the exact text we unpacked today, keeping the memory of her incredible intellect and bravery alive generation after generation. Which brings us to our final thought. The source text strongly emphasizes that simply listening to the story with focus, that Shravan Bhakti, is a powerful act in itself. It kind of makes you wonder, right? If the absolute structured devotion and sharp intellect of one woman could historically outsmart death, what is the modern power of deeply listening to and preserving these traditions in our lives today? How does passing down these narratives of resilience shape our own ability to face the impossible? It's definitely a fascinating concept to ponder. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving into the amazing stories that shape our world.